back to my channel. My name is Kelsey Osenbach, and today we are going to go into wedding series. Yay! So I have all these tips and tricks and knowledge for you guys after I just spent the past 11 months of my life planning for the wedding and for the marriage that would follow. So today, I'm actually going to be going into a tip on planning for the wedding. However many couples do that, planning for the marriage. However many couples do this while they are engaged during the wedding planning process. So one thing that Ben and I did while we were engaged was premarital counseling. And I know some people might ask, like, is that necessary, especially if your relationship is healthy, blah, blah, blah. Now, Ben and I had an extremely healthy dating and engagement relationship, and our marriage is healthy. Granted, I know we've only been married for like a month, and I know some of you who have been married for a long time might sit here and go, you're still in the honeymoon phase. And I understand. I am by no means saying that we have it all figured out, but we do have a good relationship, and I think that that is based on our premarital counseling that we received. So I highly, highly suggest that if you are engaged, do premarital counseling. A lot of officiants will do it with you. So if you're not sure who to ask, you could talk to your officiant about doing it. But if you've got a local church that you're a part of, you could talk to your pastor. Originally, we were going to get the pastor from my church that I grew up in State College, Pennsylvania. Well, not grew up, but spent a lot of years. I was very close to the pastor because he used to be my youth pastor, and then he took on the senior pastor role. When he was not able to do it because of time, he recommended another couple to us who I knew personally, and they go to the same church as him, and it was fabulous. We loved working with them. So when you do your premarital counseling, I think it's super, super important to have like a older married couple there who's your mentor. Ben and I could have easily done the book that we did together by ourselves, but I think the thing that we enjoyed the most is getting to talk with the couple that we did our premarital counseling with and gaining advice from them on the stuff that we were going over in the book that we were doing. And it was so enjoyable. We live in New York, and our premarital counselors live in Pennsylvania. And so instead of like doing, 6 weeks of one session at a time, you take 2 hours out of a Saturday, they wanted to make it easier for us for travel. So we went down 2 weekends about 6 months before our wedding and did 3 sessions. It was more of like a retreat. Like if you've ever been to a marriage retreat conference weekend, it was kind of like that, where you just go and you stay, and your main focus is the premarital counseling, and you have a session, and then you eat, and then you have another session in the afternoon, then you wake up the next morning and have another session. It was very much like that, and we really enjoyed it. I would say that it was probably one of our favorite things that we did as an engaged couple when it came to the wedding planning. And that followed very closely by our engagement photos. Both of those were extremely fun. The book that we did was written by Chevy Ingram, and it's Experiencing God's Dream for Your Marriage. And this book is awesome. We loved it, and our premarital counselors did an amazing job. So your counselors, when they purchase this, it'll come, or I'm not exactly sure what all comes with it, but they get a DVD And each session has a video that you watch first, and we watched it all together. And then each session has readings to go along with it, and then questions. And we would do the questions, and our premarital counselors would answer the question first, and then they could kind of go more into like how this played out in their marriage because they've been married for a few years. And then Ben and I would answer the questions and talk about it. And it was really good because we learned more, like I learned more about myself, and Ben learned more about himself, and then we were able to learn about each other and figure out like what could be issues that come up in our marriage, so then that way we're prepared for them. This goes into, I'm not going to go too in depth into everything that this book covers, but it goes into God's dream for your marriage. So how he designed marriage to be based on the scripture, and then what barriers you could experience in intimacy. There are so many differences in people, your personalities, the fact that you're a man and a woman, how you were raised. Like there's so many different barriers that could keep you from experiencing true intimacy, and you go over those things so then that way you really learn the other person and how they work and how they think, so then that way you can decrease those amount of barriers to intimacy. They go into the 4 keys to intimacy, so how you can work on gaining better intimacy, conflict resolution, obviously, and then the difference between men and women and enjoying that difference and not trying to change your man and how he's wired, and men not trying to change women and how they're wired, and just knowing that we're different and enjoying the fact that we are different, and that's how God made us, and our differences help each other out. And so that's what is gone over. A lot of the things, because Ben and I are so open in our relationship with communication, a lot of the stuff that we went over with our premarital counselors, we had already talked about ourselves. However, there were some things that we, hadn't gone over or hadn't thought of or anything like that. And so it was really nice to go over it there. But I think the biggest thing was, even though we had already talked about it, we hadn't really heard someone else's perspective of somebody who's been married for a very long time, which was the great thing about having the married couple there to be our mentors. I highly suggest having both a man and a woman mentor there together. I know some pastors just do it by themselves. If you have your pastor or your officiant, you could always ask them if they could bring their spouse with them to the marriage council sessions, because I think it's very good to hear both sides. Like if I had only been talking to the female counselor, I wouldn't have gotten the male's perspective of someone who's been married for a long time. And so it was really nice to get his perspective too on that. I think the biggest takeaway that we have gotten from the premarital counseling, and it's still something that we do every single Wednesday night, is what Chip Ingram calls a conference. And that is where you sit down once a week, or he doesn't say you have to do it once a week. Ben and I have decided to do it once a week, because then that just gives us a chance to really make sure that issues, if there are any, are being discussed. And when you conference, there are 3 questions that you will ask each other. The man always asks these 3 questions to the woman first, and then the woman asks the questions to the man, okay? So you sit down, and the first question that's asked is, what are you concerned about? And whoever is talking about any of the answers to these questions, the other person is not allowed to interrupt. They need to sit there and listen. And when you first do this challenge, In your premarital counseling sessions, your mentors will give you duct tape. And whoever is not talking has to have the duct tape on their mouth so that they're really focused on listening to the other person. So that's the first question. So the man will ask the woman, what are you concerned about? And then the woman will answer. And then she will ask the man, what are you concerned about? And then he will answer. The second question is, what do you desire? And this could be in relation to what you're concerned about. So if you're concerned about the kids' schedule this week and making sure that everybody gets everywhere, and you're concerned about being too stressed out or anything, your desire could be that a plan is figured out on how this is all going to work. And then the woman would ask the man what he desires. In these first two questions, you have to make sure that you are telling your partner your concerns and your desires with the expectation. This is very important. With the expectation that the only thing that your partner is going to do is listen to you. You should not have any expectations of, I'm telling you this so you can do something about it. Okay? This is not something that you're telling your partner because you expect them to do something. Okay? You're telling your partner so that you two can grow in intimacy and communication. Okay? So now, if your partner loves you the way they are supposed to, when they hear your concerns and your desires, it should spark something in them to help you. Okay? So the third question is, what are you going to do about it? Okay? So the man will then ask the woman, what are you going to do about it? Okay? So then that gives the woman the chance to look at her man's concerns and his desires and figure out what she is actually able to do. Be realistic. I know sometimes Ben comes to me with concerns about his job, and I'm not always able to help him with that. So I can't say something like, oh, I can help you with these tasks or anything like that. Okay? But I can say, like, honey, I'll take care of this household chore since you're stressed out at work, or something like that. Be realistic about what you can actually do about your partner's concerns and desires. Then, women, you will ask your man, what are you going to do about it? And don't sit there and go, what are you going to do about it? And be like, just, use a tone of voice that is respectful. And, not argumentative. Conferences are not a point where you want to get fired up and have an argument. Sometimes that may happen, but it's not the point of the conference. The point of the conference is to lovingly communicate with each other about what is going on. Okay? Ben and I, like I said, do this every Wednesday night. And we have decided to do it after every single time that one of us is gone for a few days or an extended period of time and we're not together. Chevy Ingram goes into a story in one of his videos where he talks about the conference, where there was a man and a woman who were married, and they both loved God and were committed to each other and didn't want to divorce. He went away for a few days. And when he came back home, he was trying to show her love by taking her out to an extravagant dinner and everything. But what she really needed was help with the kids. She was trying to show him love by going along with all of that. And she kept all of that bottled up inside. And they are no longer together now because of the argument that ensued after this. Whereas if he would have come home, they would have conferenced together first, then he would have known the horrible, stressful week that she had had with the kids while he was gone. And he would have been able to help her with that. She would have known that he desired to have some really romantic time with her since they had been away from each other. And then she would have been able to help with that. And so the conference is really just for communication. And so that's my tip for, like, if you're already married and, you know, you're looking for something to increase your intimacy, start a conference. Okay, and I'm sure you could look up Chevy Ingram conference strategies and get more from him as well. But that's the gist of the conference. And yeah, just make sure you don't interrupt each other. I've had to, Ben and I don't use duct tape anymore, but I've had to, I've started to say something while he was talking. And I've had to go like that because you're not supposed to interrupt. You're supposed to listen. Okay. And that's, I think, what really keeps it from getting into an argument, because you're allowing the other person to talk. So that's my thoughts on premarital counseling. If you're engaged and you haven't done premarital counseling yet, I highly, highly suggest it. It's super, super beneficial, and you're going to learn a lot that's going to carry over into your marriage. Ever since we learned about the conference 6 months before our wedding, we started doing it every single week, and that's something that we've carried on into our marriage. And it is really good for someone like me who has trouble talking and expressing feelings when it comes to conflict and deep stuff. I'm a people pleaser. I don't like to talk about things that could be bring on confrontation, and I usually keep that bottled. But the conference allows me to get it out. So yeah, and if you have already had premarital counseling and you didn't learn about the conference, I highly suggest that you start implementing it. It's a great thing. So that's the video for today. If you haven't already, please subscribe, hit that notification bell. I'll be putting out more videos, and if you hadn't noticed, I got my hair cut. I did it myself. I got tired of the quarantine and not being able to go to the salon. I needed it really bad. So I will be putting out a future video of how I cut my own hair. I feel like it has a lot of body and curl back to it. This is day 2. I washed it yesterday. Excuse me. So I'd love to have you back to the channel for more wedding and curly girl tips. Have a great day, y'all.